Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Creating Comic Strips with Google Slides. This session is part of a series of free webinars offered every week or two by the Stark Portage Area Computer Consortium, or SPARC for short. SPARC is an information technology center in Northeast Ohio where we support about 30 school districts. However, this webinar is open to everyone, and we'd like to welcome all the people who have joined us live today or are watching this recording in the future. My name is Eric Curts, and I am a technology integration specialist here at SPARC, and I'll be your presenter for this session today. I am joined by my colleague Anthony Luscre, who will be manning the Q&A doc, which we'll talk about here in just a moment. All of the information for today's webinar can be found at the link shown on the screen here, tiny.cc/SPARC226, SPARCC 226. I'm going to go there in just a moment, but that's the link that will have the video and all the other resources for this session today. So let me pop on over there and show you what that looks like. There we go. There's the website. There you will find the live stream of the video, or after the fact, the recorded video. So you can always come back here later and watch this again or share it with other people. Below the video, there's a section there with help resources. So whether we've got slideshows or help guides, any resources, those are always below the video. Further down, there is the live session chat. And that's what I mentioned just a moment ago. If you open up that document, it's a Google Doc, and it is editable. So anybody who opens it, feel free. You can jump in there and ask a question, share a suggestion, just communicate with each other. Anthony is going to be monitoring that document. And if there's any questions that he can't answer, he'll be sure to pass them along to me. But he always does a fantastic job doing that, as well as you guys can help each other. Below there is a link to the session evaluation. So after this is all over and done, we certainly appreciate some feedback. Helps us improve these sessions for the future. And then below there is an option to earn a certificate of attendance. Yes, we do have a short quiz, a little 5-question quiz you can take after watching the video. If you pass that quiz, you'll be emailed a PDF certificate of attendance for 1 contact hour that you can turn into LPDC or whatever your school does for professional development. All right. Now, while you're there at the site, you might want to visit just a couple other quick things. We do have a link to our PD schedule here at the top showing other upcoming webinars. And we've got all the ones for January planned out now. We don't have the links in yet, so sorry you can't sign up just this moment. Give us probably another day or two and we'll get all that set up, but at least you can see the dates and the topics of what January is going to have. In addition, we've got a link to our recorded training so you can see all of the past webinars we've done. And my goodness, this list is growing all the time. While you're there, there's also a newsletter link you can click on to sign up for our monthly e-newsletter. It'll basically tell you all the previous webinars that we just did that last month, what's upcoming, but also just lots of good tips and tricks about technology. So I encourage you guys to sign up for the SPARC Lines e-newsletter. And finally, there's a contact link there if you need to get in touch with either myself or Anthony. All right, fantastic. Well, let's go ahead and we'll head back to our page for today. There we go. Excellent. So let's go ahead and get started here. Our session agenda for today. So we're going to be talking about creating digital comic strips. So the first part of this discussion is just basically, well, why would we do this? How does that fit into a school setting? Then we're going to talk about why Google Slides. Why is that a good option? There's a lot of choices out there, but Google Slides definitely is a good one. And then the majority of the time, we're going to make a comic strip. Now, I hope you'll follow along with me. So, I'll go through the whole thing at a pace that you should be able to follow along and do the same thing. But I'm going to create a comic strip from scratch. And then when we're all done with that, we'll talk about how to publish that online or how to print that out. So that's the plan for our hour together here today. As far as prerequisites for this session, you will need some sort of a Google account. If you want to create a Google slideshow, you've got to have a Google account. So either a personal Gmail account or a school Google Apps account is fine. Of course, you'll need access to Google Slides. And although it's not required, a basic understanding of how to use slides certainly will be helpful. I'm going to be covering a ton of things, so it'll probably catch you up fine if you haven't used it, or if you've used PowerPoint before, you should be fine. You shouldn't have any issues with that. All right. So let's get going. As we said, the first thing we're going to chat about is why comic strips? Why would we want to create these in the first place? And there's a lot of great reasons why this can be useful in a school setting. For example, it is another option for projects. I mean, we've got the normal shoebox float, and we've got the normal, PowerPoint slideshow, and we've got the normal poster board. I know we've bought many a poster board in my household for the kids. This is another option. So it's great to give kids more than one choice when it comes to creating their product to share their learning. Well, hey, a comic strip gives us one more tool in that arsenal. It also allows for a lot of creativity. It's a big blank canvas that they can fill out with all sorts of neat pictures and text and colors. So it really does tap into, we talk about the 4 C's: communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. Very important point there is to get as much creativity options for our students. It uses a familiar format. Students are all familiar with comic strips. So whether it's web comics or print comics or comic books. It does allow us to incorporate both visual and written information. So I think that's neat. It's not just a written assignment. We do get to bring in visuals, and that can certainly appeal to our visual learners. And of course, this can help improve our narrative writing skills because you are telling a story. And finally, it's just fun. I mean, something that kids could definitely enjoy. So there's a lot of good reasons to have students create comic strips in school. What about some ideas for what they might create with it? Now, this is certainly only a very small amount. You guys can probably think of many more than I'm going to list here. But a couple of ideas would be things like picking a concept from class. Maybe it's a property in science or whatever. You pick some item that you're learning about in class and do a short comic to illustrate that concept. Or maybe you're retelling a story or a portion of a story that they've read in class. Or maybe they're reenacting a famous scene from history. Perhaps it's autobiographical and they're making a comic about themselves. Or maybe they're just picking a vocab word for that week, whether it's a spelling word or a vocab word from science or math or social studies or whatever it might be, and they need to create a comic to illustrate that vocabulary word and show that they understand what it means. So a lot of possibilities, I'm sure, beyond even what I've mentioned there. So with that said, what tool should we use to build a comic strip? Well, obviously, we're going to talk about Google Slides today. Now, keep in mind, yes, there are many other options out there. That is not the only tool you can use, but there are definitely some benefits to it. So, for example, one thing that's really nice about it is Google Slides is free. There's a lot of great a lot of great comic strip building programs out there, but I've heard people say, yeah, but then they're limited. Like I can only do so much, or I have to pay for an account. Oh, that's what's great about Slides. It's part of Google Apps. It's free, so your kids can use it without any problem making as many comics they want or as long as they want. Another nice thing is students can use their existing accounts. If they've got a Google Apps account from the school, there you go. Just fire up a slide and they're ready to go, as opposed to having to sign up for another account through some other service. Another nice thing, I know we mentioned this earlier, but there's a lot of opportunities for creativity. Slides allows you to put in pictures and speech bubbles and shapes and animations and transitions and all kinds of really creative things. So students definitely can be creative with it. Speaking of which, you can add animations to the comics. So it doesn't have to be just a flat panel comic that you just read panel by panel by panel. Instead, things can move. You can have characters enter and exit. You can have speech bubbles appear. So it can be animated as opposed to just a flat comic strip. Some other nice things about it, the ability to collaborate with others. Now that's fantastic. Everything in Google Drive, docs, sheets, slides, drawings, they allow you to work by yourself if you want, or to invite others in and let them edit that with you or comment on it or review it. Well, this is a great way for collaboration. Kids can work together to build their comic strip rather than just having to work on their own if that is the choice. When you're all done, you can also publish to the web everything that you've created. So it's fine to print. You definitely can. We'll show you there's an option to print these out, but you don't have to print. Whatever they create can be published to the web so people all over can access that with a link and be able to view that online animated comic strip. And of course, like we said, everything is accessible online. So no matter where the student goes, home, school, laptop, desktop, they can get to their comic strips. All right. So hopefully that convinces you that slides is at least worth considering. Now, before we do get started, maybe one last distinction we'll make is that since we are using Google Slides, you may say, well, how's this going to be different than just doing a Google slideshow? We've done those before. Well, because this is a comic strip, we're going to focus on a couple of things here. There'll have to be some kind of a narrative. We'll be telling a story during the slides. And we're going to have a combination of both visuals and speech. Comics are a graphic medium, so there's going to be images that we're going to be highlighting, and there will probably be some speech from our characters. Now, it doesn't have to be that way. I guess you could make a comic that doesn't have speech. You could just tell the story through the images. But that's what's going to make it different than just a regular slideshow like we're going through here. All right, well, let's do this. Let's take a look at a sample that I created just to show you what it could look like when it's all done. And then the whole rest of the time, we're just going to build a comic strip from scratch. So the one that I put together here is an example of, here, I'll pull it up. There we go. It is an example of a student explaining a science concept. In this case, they were giving the vocab term osmosis, and they needed to explain what osmosis was. And I did create this. This is just an example, but that's the idea. I'm pretending to be a student, and osmosis is my word that I need to explain. And so in this case, I'm going with Robot and Penguin, and we'll talk about where I got all this clip art and all these kind of things here in just a bit. So Robot and Penguin are the characters, and let's go ahead and we'll just click through the slideshow. So every time I click, it takes me to the next slide. And you see we're using animations to bring in the different characters. Robot says, hey, Penguin, what are you doing? And Penguin says, just studying. Click. Slides on to the next panel. So why do you have a book on your head? Robot asks. Click, slide to the next panel. Well, it's for science class, so I thought osmosis might work. And click to the final slide with the definition of osmosis, which Penguin did not really understand all that well. And so very simple there, just like 5 slides, but it sets up a teeny little story to illustrate the concept of, in this case, osmosis. All right, so that's sort of what we're going to try to create here today, is a very simple, probably 4 or 5 slide long comic strip, but we're going to use a whole lot of bells and whistles. Now, you probably saw a bunch of them in there. I had animation, I had speech bubbles, I had different backgrounds, I had different fonts. Let me let you know, as we're going through this today, your kids don't have to do everything I'm showing here. Some of this stuff is more bells and whistles things. So just be aware, I'm going to show you the whole shebang, everything you could probably throw in there to make it a pretty neat comic strip. But you can always adjust this down for your students if they just need to keep it more simple than what we're going to look at here. All right. Well, there we go. We're going to go ahead and get started then. Keep in mind that if you are not familiar with Google Slides, I do have a help guide linked into the slideshow here that gives you a lot more just basic Google Slides information. And so certainly feel free to take advantage of that help guide if that is something that you'd like to get a little bit more foundational information on. All right. So on with the session, we're going to go ahead and create a comic strip. Remember, all of the resources can be found at tiny.cc/spark226. All right, guys. Well, to do this, first thing first, we need to head over to Google Drive, because Google Slides is a part of Google Drive with docs and sheets and forms and drawings. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a new tab here. And once I get my new tab opened up, I can either go to my waffle button up here in the top right-hand corner and choose the Google Drive icon. That'll get me there. Or you can always just go to drive.google.com, whichever works for you. But you do need to get to your Google Drive to be able to create your slideshow. All right. So here I am in Google Drive. To create my slideshow, I'm going to go over to the big happy red new button in the top left-hand corner. And from that drop down, I'll see the option to create a new Google slideshow. So I'm going to go to new and then Google Slides, and we'll go ahead and open that up. All right, very good. There we are. So you should be getting, if you're following along, that's fantastic. If you just want to watch, that's fine. But if you want to try this out yourself, you should now have a blank slideshow. And we're going to go ahead and run through some basic introductory things here first. Before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and give it a name. You'll notice it is an untitled presentation at first. So I'm going to come up here. I'm just going to call this example comic strip. Nothing too fancy. Just give it a quick name up there. You can click off of that, and that should save that for me. Excellent. Now, the thing is, Google Slides is the same as Docs and Sheets and Drawings. It auto saves. So there really is no save button. There's no file save. There's no floppy disk icon. Every time we make a change, everything automatically saves. But I just wanted to go ahead and give it a name so that we've got that done. Now, next thing up, if I wanted to, I could invite some other people to work on this with me. Now, I'm going to do this one by myself, but like I said earlier, one of the great things about Google Apps is it can be collaborative. So if your students are working in a group, don't forget they can always go up to the big blue share button in the top right-hand corner, give that a click, and from the sharing pop-up menu, they could share this with other people. And they could give them either edit rights, comment rights, or view rights. So if they gave them edit rights, they would be able to share this with some of their friends in school, whoever's in their group, and they could all collaboratively work together on this, which is really nice because one of the hardest things to do is to try to put together a slideshow. If it's created in PowerPoint by 5 different people and they've all got slides in different places and you're trying to put them together and you're importing them and things like that. The beauty of Google Slides is it's all online and the kids can work together real well. All right, good stuff. So what's up next? Let's talk about our theme. Now you're going to notice down the left-hand, or excuse me, the right-hand side, there's a lot of different themes you can choose from when creating a Google slideshow. Here's the thing though. I'm going to suggest we pick the most basic, boring theme possible. We're just going to go with simple light. The reason I'm saying that is because I want to start with a blank canvas and I'm going to put all of my characters on there and I want to set the background and I want to do that. Now, you don't have to. You definitely can pick other ones if you want, but sometimes they've got colors and elements that could be distracting. So I'm just going to go with a plain white, simple light theme. And now I can close out of that little theme panel and we should be ready to go. All right, now I may zoom in a little bit here. I'm a little worried that some of these buttons may be hard to see. So I'm going to do a couple of zoom clicks there and try to make this a little bit bigger. So I may zoom in and out as we go through this today so that you can see things a little bit better. All right, good deal. Well, let's decide what the comic strip's going to be. Okay, so here's my plan. One of my sons, I remember, well, they all have vocab that they have to learn, but one in particular, I remember one week he was struggling with one of his vocab words for English, and the word was foundation. Okay, and this just was not a word he was familiar with. Okay, this was when he was probably elementary, trying to remember exactly what grade he was in, but this was several years ago. And so I was trying to come up with, well, what's a creative way I could help him picture this? So the word was foundation, and the definition was basically, what your house is built on, the lowest level, below your house. And I said, okay, well, how about this, buddy? I said, if we went outside, picture this. Let's picture we're going outside and we got a shovel. And we start digging right next to the house. So if we dug down far enough, we would hit this big giant concrete slab down there. And that's the foundation. That's what the house is sitting on. It helps keep it level and secure so it doesn't sink into the ground and all that. And I said, if we did that and somebody asked you, hey, you were out here digging with your shovel, what did you find? You could say, I found the foundation. And that little, mental connection there between the words I found and then the foundation, it really worked for him. He was like, oh, hey, that makes perfect sense. And so foundation, now he always pictured shoveling and digging and finding, he found the foundation. So let's say that's what we're going to do for our comic strip. We'll say we're a student and we've been assigned a vocab word. Maybe, you got 20 spelling words a week. Each kid gets a different word. And my word is foundation. And I need to make a comic strip that's going to show that. So that's our plan. That's where we're going with it. So I guess the first thing we want to do is we want to put some kind of a title in here for our comic strip. And you know what? We could just click in here and type. That is perfectly fine. Again, like I'm saying, you decide what's appropriate for your kid, or maybe let your students decide how fancy they want to get. If they just want to click here and they simply want to type in. So for example, let's say my comic strip is going to be called, Let me paste this in here. Vocabulary words with robot and penguin. If that's what they want to do and they just want to type it in there and just have it as regular text, there's nothing wrong with that at all. That's perfectly fine. However, if we want to take it up another level and make it a little bit more cool, instead of a text box here, we can insert what's called word art. And word art will let us make a title that's got a little bit more flair to it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually going to delete this text box. I'm not going to keep this one. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to delete it so it's gone. And instead, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say insert word art. Okay. So if I go to insert word art, it's going to pop up this little box. And again, I'll paste in vocabulary words with robot and penguin. And if I want, I can actually put these on 2 different lines here. It says use shift enter for multiple lines. There we go. So vocabulary words with robot and penguin. And now I'll go ahead and press enter, and boom, it drops that right there onto my slide. Now at this point, what I've got is the same text, but in word art, which allows me to do some fancier things with it here. Okay. So for example, whoops, didn't mean to double click on that. Sorry about that. For example, if I want to, I can change the font. So it doesn't have to be just a regular old Arial. I could come in here and I could say, oh, let's pick a different font, something a little bit more interesting than just Arial. Now, the nice thing about Google Slides, same as Docs, same as drawings, you can go in and you can go to the More Fonts section at the bottom of your font chooser, and you can choose from over 700 Google web fonts that are out there. There's tons of them out there. You can sort this by just showing the handwriting fonts, or just showing the display fonts, or the serif fonts, or the sans serif fonts. The point being, you can come in here and you can click on any one of these and say, oh, I would like to add, oh, how about this one, luckiest guy? Let's click on that one. We'll add that to our list. And as soon as I do that and say, okay, now, anytime I go to my font dropdown, that's going to be one of my available fonts. So you can have loads and loads and loads of awesome fonts to work with. So now I've got a bit more interesting font there. I can also stretch this out to make it larger. If I want to, I can change the colors. Maybe I'll fill it in with yellow, and maybe I'll make the line a little bit thicker around it there. Maybe I'll rotate it a little bit to the side so it's kind of popping out here. And you get the idea. You can very easily make a much more interesting title to your comic strip than just typing into a text box. All right, good deal. All right, so I've got my title in there. Let's go ahead and put in our subtitle now. For this, I think I will just use this box here. I'll actually drag it down, and we'll just have that be my name. I'll say by Eric Curts, and we'll just let that be regular text, although I might go ahead and move it over to the side. So for alignment, I'll put it over on the left so it's kind of out of the way. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm planning, I need a little space over here for my characters, for my robot and my penguin. I need to have a little room for them there. So I may even move this title up just a little bit here, just so there's plenty of room to bring in my characters over here. All right, so far so good. So we've got our title, we've got our subtitle. What about our background? Well, right now it's just white. And again, you let your kids do whatever. If they just want a white background, that's perfectly fine. But if they do want to go and do some more advanced things, here's what they can do. To change the background, one option is simply to right-click anywhere on the background, or a 2-finger tap if you're using like a Chromebook. That'll let you do right-clicking as well. And then I can come up here to change background. When I choose change background, it lets me pick a color or an image that I want to select for my background. Well, let's just go with a color. We'll keep it pretty simple. Let's go with, we'll go with one of these cornflowers here, one of these blue ones. I'm going to go with one that's just a step darker than the lightest. So we'll do level 2 of the light cornflower, and we'll hit done, and there we go. And so now I've got a nice blue background behind it. Now, if you really want to get fancy, and again, now we're going up to another level, totally optional. You don't have to do this, but if you think, if students would like to, sometimes you can do a cool thing where you have like an offset color in the background. Remember, let me bring my example up again. Remember with Robot and Penguin, it was a blue background, but there's also this sort of oval part that was a different color there. In comics, that can be pretty neat. We actually did that on a bunch of the slides there. Like here, we had a different color background, And then on the next one, we've got green, darker green and lighter green. And the next one we had red and pink. So how does that happen? Totally optional again, but if you want to gussy this up a little bit, what you can do is you can go to the Insert Shape menu, and you can actually drop a shape in here, like a circle or a triangle or a trapezoid or whatever you might want to put in here. And then you can make it a slightly different color than the background, and you can push it behind all the text, and it will give you this sort of offset color that's kind of cool. So if I came in here, I'll just grab a circle. But instead of doing just a regular circle, I'll stretch it out like it's an oval. To make it a circle, I'd have to hold down the Shift key. That would keep it a circle. If I just stretch it out, it'll just make it a regular old oval here. And so I could come in here and I could make this big old oval. And maybe we'll make it a little bit bigger. Maybe we'll rotate it a little bit so it's sort of at an angle here. And maybe too much of an angle. You could play with this all day. Of course, I won't, because we got lots to look at. But there we go. So I'll go ahead and I'll make it a little bit bigger. There it is. And then what I could do is I could change the color of this shape by using the paint can. I'm going to go with just a slightly lighter blue. Remember, I used Cornflower Blue 2 for my background. I'll go with Cornflower Blue 3, an even lighter one to fill it. And I'll do the same for its line, so it doesn't have like a black line going around it. So now all I have to do is somehow get this thing behind my title. So how do I push it behind my title? Well, all things on a slide can be ordered. So if I've got this selected and I go to the Arrange option at the top, there's a menu drop down for ordering. I can send things forward and backwards. I can also do this right clicking. If I right click on a shape, I can also choose order. So if I come here and say send to back, boom, it'll throw it all the way behind everything else on the slide. All right, looking good. So what do we still need? We need some characters. So we got to get a robot and a penguin into this slideshow so we can start building our comic strip. Well, folks, there are so many ways to add images to a slideshow. You pick what works for you. I'm going to show you a couple of options, but you go with what you want. So for example, you could go Insert Image. And if you choose that, it's going to pop up the normal insert image dialog that has 6 different options. You can upload pictures that you've downloaded. You can take a snapshot with your web camera. Hey, there I am right there on the camera. Isn't that wonderful? You can also insert a link out to a picture that's on the internet. You can go to your albums, which is going to be your Google Photo albums if you use Google Photos, and grab an image from any of your albums. You can go to Google Drive, grab a picture you've saved off of your drive, or you can even choose search, and you can do a Google search to find images. All of those are fine. Nothing wrong with any one of those. Those work great. Another option that's pretty cool is drag and drop. If I were to open up a new tab, and again, you don't have to do this, but I'm just going to show you real quick. If I go to a site like openclipart.org, openclipart.org is a great website for free public domain clip art. If I came here and I typed in something like penguin, and I ran a search, I could find all these different clip arts of penguins here. And then I could come in here, click on one of my penguins, and once he opens up, what you can do is you can actually click, hold down, and then drag and drop images from other web pages right onto your slide. So if you do find an image on some other website, if you click and hold down, don't let go, and drag all the way up to the top, and hover your mouse above the tab that has your slideshow, it'll actually switch from the tab you were on to the tab that has the slideshow, then bring it down, 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 down. And once it's on top of the slide, if you let go, it's going to actually copy and paste that right into your slide. How about that? So now I could have that penguin in there. I'll shrink him up a little bit, just grab the little corners there to make him not quite so tall. There he is. And so I could easily drag and drop a penguin or whatever image from another website, like openclipart.org as an example. Having said that, though, my most common way anymore, it's actually using something called the research tool. So if you go up to tools in the toolbar, you'll see one of the options is research. If you give a click on research, Tools and Research, it opens up this panel over here on the side where you can search for anything. And you can find web pages, images, videos, quotes, all kinds of things. This is a great way to find, to do research like in Google Docs. If you're writing a paper, it'll even insert citations for you. It's wonderful. But what I have found is that in Google Slides, this is a great way to find clip art because see, Slides doesn't have a clip art gallery. It's not like PowerPoint. There is no clip art gallery here. So you got to find other ways to find images. So if I come here and I say, I want to run a Google search, I can click here and reduce it down to just images. So instead of searching for everything, I'm just going to search for images. And then I could type in something like robot clip art. And when I do that, it's going to find all of these really cute robot clip art images here. And all I have to do is drag and drop them over into my slideshow and they'll be in there. Now, here's something to consider. I hope I'm going to try to pick a bad one. We'll see if I do this right. If I can't remember which one it was, but I'm going to try one of these and see. Let me try this guy. Is this guy I want to use? Nope, he's a good one. Not him. It's this guy. There was one I wanted to show you. Oh, I'm picking too many good ones here now. How about you? Are you a bad one? Yes, perfect. All right, I found one. Okay, so what do I mean a bad piece of clip art? Well, there's nothing really bad about it. But did you notice when I grabbed this third robot and drug him over, do you notice he has a white rectangular background around him? Yeah, see, some images are like that. Some images are not transparent. They actually have a white box around them. And so if you drop those in, that's fine if your background is white. But if you start using colored backgrounds, that's not going to look real good, okay? So either you need to go through and drag them over until you find one that isn't, or one little hint is when you run your search, if you add the letters PNG, that's a type of an image. A PNG is a portable, means portable network graphics. And it's a type of image that most of the time has transparency. So if you go robot clip art PNG and you drag this guy over now, he ought to be one of them that has transparency, and he does. Yes, excellent. Very good. Now, after I've done that, after I've put him in there, I can close out of my research tool over here. And it does bring him in with a link. If you don't want him linked out to his original location, there is a remove option to take that link off of him. So he's just a picture all by himself there. And then we can shrink him up a little bit so he's about the same size as my penguin. And we are good to go. So there is our welcome slide, vocabulary words with robot and penguin. And again, I know that's a ton of stuff there. It could have been nothing more than the student typing in the title and moving straight on to the next slide. Or hey, let them be creative. Let them experiment with it and create some really, really graphically engaging comics. All right. So at this point, we now need to make our next slide. So that was our title slide. To create a new slide, there's a bunch of ways to do it. There's a little plus button up here on the top left. You can click the little arrow next to that and you can create all kinds of new slides. I'm just going to make a blank one, but I could come in here and do that very easily there. Or you can go up to the slide menu option in the top and choose new slide. That'll work. Or even Control M if you like to use keyboard shortcuts. That's okay too. I usually just use the little drop down next to the plus. So I'm going to do that and I'm going to scroll down to a blank slide. Again, totally blank, nothing fancy about it. I just need a blank slide. And there we go. There's my blank slide. So on this slide, it's my first real action panel of the comic. I need Robot and Penguin to come into the frame and talk to each other. Now you say, Eric, do we have to go through that whole process again of finding the robot and the penguin clip art and adding them in? No. Once you've done it once, you can just copy paste them. I mean, they're there. So I can go back to my first slide. I can click on Robot and I could either go edit copy and edit paste. I could right click on him and go copy and then come over here and paste, or I could use Control C and Control V to copy paste. Not only that, but if I grab him and then I hold down my Control key and I click on the penguin, I can grab two of them at a time. I don't even have to just do them one at a time. So again, click on one, hold down Control, click on the next. Now I got both of them. I could copy them both at the same time, come to my next slide, and I could paste them both in. Boom, there we go. Click off of them And there they are. There's my two characters now. And I don't have to go through that whole process again of finding them and inserting them. Once you got them, you got them. Now, I might want to make them a little bit bigger. They were kind of small in that first one, so we'll make them a little bit larger here since now they're coming in here to talk to each other. So we'll put, we'll bring them in here. We'll have them stand next to each other like this. That looks pretty good. And then we'll have them, talking to each other, having a conversation. So we've got our robot and our penguin in there. So that's good. Okay, that's excellent. Let's see. Let's change the background. Now, this time I won't go so crazy fancy and put all the different shapes in there. I'll just go into change background and I'll pick a color. Again, remember, you can pick an image. You can have you could run a search for underwater background or a search for, desert background or something. You could find images that you could drop in here and make that your background as well. I'm going to stick with colors though. So I'll just do a nice simple yellow background. Excellent. There we go. Now it looks a little strange because usually if they're standing here, there needs to be something for them to be standing on, like a floor, and it's all just yellow in the background. If you do want to do something like that, I would suggest, again, just using your shapes. If I go to insert shape and I go to like a rectangle, I could very easily just drag a rectangle down here and then color it in, make sure it's colored in some kind of a gray or, whatever color I want it to be for the floor. Maybe not quite so dark, maybe that's fine. And then remember, order, either right click and go to order and send it to the back, or go to arrange order and send it to the back. And now it's behind my characters. All right, so that gives me a floor there for them. All right, now I probably need them to talk to each other. So how do you get characters to talk to each other? Well, that again is from the insert menu, and it's actually in the shape menu, just where we were for putting in that rectangle, except it's a different area in the shape menu. Instead of shapes, there's arrows, and then there's callouts. That's what it is. It's a callout. Notice there's 4 different types of callouts here. So you got speech bubbles and a thought bubble as well, if you need somebody just to be thinking something to themselves. So I'm going to come in here and I'll grab this speech bubble, and I'll drag this out, put it above Robot's head here, and let's have him saying something. Let me see. I think I've already got this typed up. Here, we'll grab this and we'll just paste it in and be a little faster that way. Make sure I put it in correctly. Hey, penguin, what are you doing? Okay, so there's his call out. And we'll have to make it bigger because it's kind of hard to read that. But then let's do the penguin as well. So we'll go insert shape, and we'll go to call out to maybe give him a little rounded one. Maybe it's not quite so rectangular. The robot has a nice rectangular speech bubble because he's a robot. The penguin will give him a rounder one over here, and we'll grab his text. He's going to say, I was digging beside my house. Okay, so we'll paste that in. All right. Now I probably want to make these larger. So, hey, penguin, what are you doing? Let's bump that up. Make that a little bit bigger. Maybe bigger still. Yeah, that's pretty good. And we'll do the same with him. We'll go to our font size and we'll bump that up. Okay, that's not too bad. Okay, so hey, penguin, what are you doing? I was digging beside my house. Good. Now, what else can I do with these speech bubbles? Well, I can make it look like it's coming from their mouths. Notice that when I click on the speech bubble, there's this little yellow diamond. I can click on that and I can drag that over so that it's closer to his mouth, and the same thing for the penguin. And so if you want to, you can adjust those. You can also fill in these speech bubbles with color. Right now, they're kind of gray. I might want to fill it with white just so it's a little bit easier to read those. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. So, you know what? How about the fonts? Robots talk differently than penguins. So maybe I come up here and I actually pick a font that's more robotic. And so again, that's going to be up to you. You'll have to go through and decide, what you think looks like more of a robot type of a font. Then we'll do that one. The audio wide, we'll have that be more robotic. And maybe the penguin, we'll give him a font that's maybe a little bit more fun. Come up here and do I have Happy Monkey? Yeah, I like Happy Monkey. We'll pick Happy Monkey for him. All right, good deal. Only thing, I am missing one more thing. He's talking about digging beside his house, but you know what? He doesn't have a shovel. So let's grab him a shovel real quick. We'll go to Tools and Research, and as simple as that, we're going to type in shovel clip art PNG. So he needs a shovel. So let's get him one. There's one. Let's drag it over and drop it onto the slide. Close out of the research tool. Take that shovel. We'll remove the link from it. Let's rotate it a little bit so it's more straight up and down. And let's put it in his hand over here. And we'll shrink it up so it's not quite so big. Perfect. There we go. Simple as can be. He's got his shovel now. All right. So now we need a couple more slides. So, hey, Penguin, what are you doing? I was digging beside my house. Now the robot needs to say something like, you know, what did you find? And the Penguin will say, I found the foundation. So at this point, you can save a lot of time, and the kids can too, by simply duplicating the slide. Now, remember last time I created a new slide and I copied and pasted things into it. Well, if you really want to save a lot of time, what you can do is you can come in here and right click on the slide and choose duplicate slide. So any slide that you've got, give it a right click, say duplicate slide. It will make a complete copy of that slide. And then you can just change the things on it that need to be changed. So if I go right click, duplicate slide, I now have a carbon copy of that, and I can just go in now and I can just make slight alterations to it rather than having to rebuild the whole thing from scratch. That can save a ton of time. Okay, so there's a little bit of work up front, but then it gets quicker and quicker as you go. So I could come in here and maybe change the background. So we'll go with a different color this time. Maybe we'll go with a light green. And now we'll have the robot saying, so what did you find? So let's grab that and we'll change what he says. And then the Penguin will say, I found the foundation. So we'll come over here and we'll put that in. And there we go. Now, again, I could do this in multiple slides. I could have had just a slide where the robot was talking and then just a slide where the Penguin was talking. So I could have duplicated the slide, deleted the Penguin out, zoomed in on the robot, made him big, kind of like in the earlier one I did here where Penguin was by himself and then robot was by himself after they both had been talking to each other. So you could duplicate it, pull the Penguin out, make the robot bigger, duplicate it again, pull the robot out and make the Penguin bigger. And so, you know, we could do that. But for the sake of time, I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate the original one and just change some of the text. All right. Final thing we need to do probably is have a concluding slide where we give the actual definition of the word foundation. So for this, we're going to go ahead and make one more new slide. We'll just make it a blank slide because it's just going to be the definition. And maybe we'll go to our research tool and we'll search for something like maybe notebook paper. Maybe if we run a search for that, that will let us find, yeah, there we go. So let me grab some notebook paper. I'll drag that over and drop that on. It's a little light, might be hard to see. I hope you guys can see that there. But once it's in there, I can stretch it out. If I want, I can stretch it to the side also to kind of make it fit the whole thing. So that's fine. That would work. Now it's covering the entire background. And so there's my notebook paper. And now I could add on top of this my definition for the word foundation. So I'm going to need to use my insert text box option to drag out a big text box here. And then I'm going to want to go ahead and paste in here. Well, I'll type it in, the word foundation, and then I want to paste in my definition. I think I've already got that typed up here. Let me copy and paste that in. So here's my definition, and it's really, really, really small. So let's pump up that to about a third, no, bigger than that. Let's go about a 48, maybe even larger. Yeah, that's pretty big. And now, again, if you want to, you can change the font, and maybe this time go with something that's more like a handwriting font because it's like you're writing out the definition, you know, so that would be fine. So maybe I'll go with Architect's Daughter. That's more of a handwriting font, as if you've actually written that out. So there we go. We've got our title slide. We've got them chatting. We've got the punchline from the Penguin there, and we've got our definition of foundation. Now, again, that may be it. That may be exactly what you wanted the students to do, and that was enough. But we're going to take it up a couple more notches because there are some other cool things we could add, like animations and transitions. So right now, if we were to play this, it would just show one slide after the other, and that's perfectly fine. Nothing wrong with that at all. But what if I do want this to be a little bit more animated? Well, to animate things, all you have to do is click on an item like robot. Let's say in my second slide, I want the robot to come in from the left and the penguin to come in from the right, and then they talk to each other. So if I go to my second slide and I click on robot, I can go to Insert Animation. If I choose Insert Animation, it will now open up the animation panel on the right-hand side where I can choose how I want to animate him. Now, folks, there's not a ton of these. PowerPoint has a whole lot more, but there are still some pretty neat ones in here. So for example, if I want to choose something like fly in from left, I could choose that. Now, I do want to decide, does it have to wait for me to click? If you have to wait to click, then nothing will happen until the user clicks. I usually, in a comic, just let it play through. So I'll usually say, instead of on click, I'll say after previous. So after whatever happens before, it automatically then goes ahead and does that next animation. Same for Penguin. Click on him. Whoops, there he is. Oh, you know what, though? Penguin's got a shovel. Oh, boy, what are we going to do? Well, I don't want him to come in and then shovel fly in separately. So one of the cool things you can do is you can group items. So if I click on Penguin, and if I hold down my control key and I click on the shovel, so I've got both of them clicked on, I can now right-click and choose Group or Arrange and Group, and it connects those two together. So now Penguin and shovel are one item. They're not separate. And of course, you can right-click and ungroup them if you need to later. But now that they're grouped, aha, now if I say Add Animation, he can fly in from the right after previous. Very good. And then after they fly in, let's click on Robot's little text box here, and let's add an animation to that. We'll have that fade in after previous. And then Penguin's speech box, let's have it fade in after previous. Wonderful. Now, if you want to, you can hit the play button at the bottom just to try it out and see if it's working the way you want it to. So hit play, it'll show you Robot comes in, Penguin comes in, and each of their speech bubbles come in. Click stop when you're done, and you're back to edit mode. So you can kind of preview it if you want to there. Perfect. So that's animation for that slide. If I go to my next slide, I really don't need to animate them coming in, but I could animate their text. So I could go back to Insert Animation. For Robot's text, we'll have it fade in after previous. For Penguin's text, we'll add an animation to have it fade in after previous. And then tell you what, let's grab his shovel and have him spin his shovel after he's done making his little joke there. So that means I'm going to have to ungroup them. I'm going to have to come here and, they weren't grouped on this one. Ha, see, there you go. They weren't grouped on this one, were they? I don't think so. No, I did not group them. If they were grouped, I would have to ungroup them. Forgot that I had not grouped them on that slide. So I guess we're okay there. So let me go ahead and I will go to my shovel and I will insert an animation and I will choose spin. Oh, it's way down below. Let me zoom out a bit here so I can actually see this. There it is, spin. Excellent. Spin after previous. All right. And we'll zoom back in a little bit there. All right. So there we go. So now let's play that and see. So Robot talks, Penguin talks, and his shovel spins. Excellent. We're looking good. All right. Now, in addition to animations, another thing you can do is what's called transitions. Now, transitions are between slides. So when one slide goes to the next, does it just switch? Is it just a new slide? Or does it do some kind of fancy thing in between the two? Well, since this is supposed to be a comic strip, one fun thing you could do with transitions is have it move from right to left, like you're scrolling through a comic strip. To get to transitions, you go to slide and then change transition. It actually opens up the animation window we were at earlier. It's just a top portion of it called transitions. So I can come here and say, I want to give it a transition. And there's like fade and slide and flip and cube and gallery. We're going to say slide from right. So it's going to move in from the right. And then we're going to click the button apply to all slides. So that transition applies to every one of the slides in there. Well, I think we're about ready to take it for a spin. We've created our slideshow. We've done word art. We've put in images from lots of different sources. We've added call outs and we've put in text boxes and we've animated things and we've got transitions. So let's just check it out and see how it looks. So before we release this to the world, we want to try it out ourselves. So up here in the top right is the present button. If I click there and say present in a new window, this should go ahead and open up here for me. Excellent. There we go. And so now if I click, it should move me to the next slide, and it should use that transition from right to left, and then everything should start animating on the slide. Let's see. Vocabulary words with robot and penguin. Click. Here comes the next slide. Here comes robot. Here comes penguin. Hey, penguin, what are you doing? I was digging beside my house. Click for the next one. Here they come again. So what did you find? I found the foundation. And he spins his shovel. Click for the next one, foundation, the lowest part of a building, typically below ground level. Excellent. Very nice. That turned out really, really well. So at this point, the student is done, or the students, if they're working together as a group, they're all done. And so the question is, what do they do with this now? Now, don't forget, there's tons of ways that things can be shared. They could, of course, hit the blue share button in the top right-hand corner. They could share that with you so that, you as a teacher could get to it. That's fine. It could be through Google Classroom. They could add it from their drive to an assignment. That would be fine. That's all good. But here's the thing. Normally, if you want somebody to watch your slideshow, you want them to see it full screen in presentation mode. And see, the problem is if you go to the share button, you're going to share, and I can do it for a moment here. I'll show you real quick. If I get a shareable link and I copy the link, okay? If somebody comes in and they follow that link, what it's going to do is it's going to open up the slideshow in edit mode. Now, they may not have edit rights, so they can't change anything, but they're going to see all your slides down the side, and they're going to have to know to click the present button to actually run it. It's not going to run like a live slideshow. And that's actually what we want, is we want it to go full screen. So how do you do that? Well, that's something called publish to the web. So from your Google slideshow, what you're going to want to do at the end here is go to, and I'll zoom in a bit here again, just so we can see this a little bit better. Go to the file menu in the top left, and then go down to publish to the web. When you give a click on that, it's going to open up the screen that says, are you sure you want to do this? And you go, I am. Now, I usually don't check these boxes to start it right away. I usually let the person viewing it decide when they want to click to get it started. So all I do is hit the publish button. And it says, are you sure? And I go, yes, I'm sure. And it now gives me this crazy long, nasty link. It is big. But if you copy this link now, anybody who gets that link, watch what they're going to get. So let me come over here. Let me paste this link in, this crazy long publish link. And when I hit enter to paste it in, look at that. It goes full screen presentation mode. It's ready. Oh, perfect. Now I can watch it like it was intended. I'm not getting all the little thumbnails down the side. I'm not getting all the menu options. I'm actually seeing it as if it was running as a full screen presentation. So that's the key. File and publish to the web. At that point, you get a link. The key of what you do with that link, well, that's up to you. You could take that link and that could be submitted through Classroom, or that link could be, hey, put on your web page. Maybe you as a teacher want to collect all these awesome comics your kids have made, put all the links together on your web page so other students can, guess what? Study with these. I mean, what a great way to work on vocab. Let the students create content that feeds back into the classroom so other kids can now go through the comics and review and learn. It's fantastic. So the links could be put on your web page. They could be thrown into a Google Doc that gets shared out. They could be sent out on social media, or again, turned in through Classroom. But that's the link you really want, is the publish to web link. Now, what if somebody says, you know what, we actually do want to print these out because it's a comic. We want to have like a comic book. Hey, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. There's no problem with that. If you do want to print them out, though, here's my suggestion to you. If you go up to the file menu, you're going to want to go all the way down to print settings and preview. And when you do that, it's going to open up a screen where you can choose the different amount of slides you want on each page. To make it more like a comic book, I'd probably go with something like handout 6 slides per page or 4 slides or whatever makes sense for the amount you've done. If you click that, and then I'd probably switch it from landscape to portrait. But hey, you do whatever makes sense for you. Now what I've got is something that looks much more like a classic comic where I've got panel after panel after panel showing the different scenes. And again, this was a very short one. I probably could have gone a lot longer with this. I could have broken some of these up into separate panels, but that's okay. And so at that point, by going here and choosing the type of a layout you want, you could then, for example, print it right away. That's great. Print them out. Put them in a book, hang them up, excellent. Or hey, download as a PDF. So you could download these as PDFs and then put the PDFs together to make your own electronic comic book. Wouldn't that be awesome? Okay. Well, I'm going to close out of that preview, and we are actually coming really close to the end of our time here. I'm going to take a quick look over to Anthony to see if any questions have come in that we have not had a chance to address. Anything up there, Anthony?
Yes. They want to know if we're able to have a loop other than by publishing it to the web.
The only way to get it to loop would be to publish it to the web. I usually don't turn on that looping feature, but if you go to publish to the web, and if you say start immediately and restart when it's done, that will start it and loop it at the end like a kiosk constantly running. I usually don't check those. I just let it be published to the web and let the user click to take it through. No, that's the only way built into slides that would have you be able to do that. Okay, anything else?
Someone already answered the question.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, using animated GIFs or GIFs, you decide. Absolutely. Honestly, I should have mentioned that. There's one for next time. And that's the beauty of this, guys. I've never taught a session that I don't learn something. And I really appreciate you mentioning that. So here's the idea. You can put animated GIFs or animated GIFs in here as well. Now, I don't know that I've got any in particular. I guess I could do a quick research thing and see maybe I do have something that is, I'll do like a dog, I'll do animated, and I don't know if any of these are, but we'll do a quick search and see. I do not know if they are. We'll drag him over and see if he actually is animated. Oh, there we go. And so you can see, well, not a very exciting one, but you can see that it's actually an image that moves and it's built into the GIF or the GIF. It's graphics interchange format, GIF. And so, thank you for mentioning that. That's true too. You could do a search for animated GIF or animated GIF, and you could find those and drag those in. And Google Slides will show them animated, that way as well. So excellent. Boy, that's fantastic. I appreciate that. Anything else, Anthony, before I do our wrap up here?
Well, just Rita wishes everyone happy holidays from Argentina.
Oh, Rita from Argentina. Oh, thank you, Rita. I really appreciate that and appreciate everything that you share online. All right, well, let's go ahead and we're going to start to wrap things up here today. Let me get to the right slide here. Oh, there we go. Excellent. So as a reminder, all of the information for today's webinar can be found at tiny.cc/spark226. I'll go there one more time to show you the page. There you can find the video, which will be the recorded video from here on out. The help resources for this session, the live chat doc will still be there. There's probably a lot of good questions and answers in there to check out. There's the session evaluation. We always appreciate your feedback. If you don't mind filling that out, helps us improve these sessions. And then, hey, don't forget, get credit for what you just did. Take our short little quiz and you'll get emailed a PDF certificate of attendance for 1 hour for taking the time to view this webinar. While you're at the site, don't forget to check out our PD schedule for upcoming webinars. Again, we've got 4 of them in January. Give us a moment to get the links in there. They're not in there yet, but at least you can see the dates and the topics. We'll get the registration links in very shortly. Don't forget our recorded trainings of all the ones we've done in the past are all available, the newsletter to sign up for, and the contact option there to get in touch with Anthony and myself. So again, I just want to thank everybody so much for taking the time to watch this session today. We hope to see you again over the coming weeks for more education technology webinars. Take care.